This tutorial is for 5th grade, Module 4, Lesson 15. In Lesson 15, we're going to continue looking at the fraction model to help us understand the relationship between it and multiplication of fractions. Our first question is 2/5 of 2/3. That means I'm going to start by drawing 2/3 on my fraction model. I'll divide it into thirds and shade in 2 of those pieces. That shows me 2/3. To find 2/5 of that, I'm going to draw my fifths horizontally across the model. So I'll divide it into 5 pieces horizontally. And we'll look at 2 of those rows because it's 2/5. We're going to shade those 2 rows in. And that means these 4 pieces represent the answer for 2/5 of 2/3. I can see I have 4 pieces out of the 15 pieces that make up the whole. So 2/5 of 2/3 equals 4/15. As a multiplication problem, we would say 2/5 times 2/3 equals 4/15. In this question, we've replaced the word of with the multiplication symbol. We still work the problem the same way. 3/4 times 2/3 can be thought of as 3/4 of 2/3, which means I'm going to start by drawing 2/3 on my model. I have my thirds. I shade them. And I'll show 2/3. And I have to take 3/4 of that, and I'll do that by drawing my fourths horizontally across my thirds. And since we're looking at 3/4, I need to focus on 3 of those rows. I'll shade those pieces. And this section here represents my answer. I can see that there are 6 pieces out of the 12 that make up the whole. That means that 3/4 times 2/3 equals 6/12. Now you may notice a pattern here. Let's look at this problem again. 3/4 times 2/3 was 6/12. You may notice that if we take our numerators, 3 and 2, and multiply them, 3 times 2 gives me 6. 4 times 3 gives me 12. So mathematically, we can look at multiplying fractions as multiplying our numerators and multiplying our denominators. The picture helps prove that that pattern works. So let's keep this in mind as we move to the next section. In the next section, we need to find the answer to the multiplication problems. We can use drawings if we wish, or we can use the pattern that we just talked about. So the first problem is 4/5 times 5/8. If I want to use the number pattern, as in the problem before this one, I can look at my numerators. 4 times 5 is 20. 5 times 8 is 40. We can leave the answer just like this, 20/40ths, or you may notice that 20 is half of 40, so this fraction would be equal to 1/2. It's okay if we leave it at 20/40ths, but again, if you have the number sense and logic to see that that's 1/2, 1/2 is an acceptable answer as well. The next question is 4/9 times 3/10. I take my numerators and multiply them. 4 times 3 equals 12. 9 times 10 equals 90. So 4/9 times 3/10 is 12/90. Next we have a word problem, and we're going to use a tape diagram to help us solve it. It says Philip's family traveled 3/10 of the distance to his grandmother's house on Saturday. They traveled 4/7 of the remaining distance on Sunday. What fraction of the distance to his grandmother's house was traveled on Sunday? I'm going to write an answer statement so I know what my goal of the problem is. So I'm going to say they traveled blank of the total distance on Sunday, and my blank will be a fraction. We're going to call the tape the whole, or in this case, that would be the total distance. Since they traveled 3/10 on Saturday, I'm going to break the tape into 10 pieces. And we'll show that 3/10 was traveled on Saturday. Next it says they traveled 4/7 of the remaining distance on Sunday. Well, the whole remaining distance is that section of the tape, and you can see that that's 7 pieces. Well, 4 out of those 7 pieces were traveled on Sunday. So we'll say these 4 pieces were traveled on Sunday. The question is, what fraction of the whole was traveled on Sunday? Well, 4 pieces out of the 10 that make up the whole were traveled on Sunday. So they traveled 4/10 of the total distance on Sunday, because those 4 pieces are 4 out of the 10.